Hello. Today we'll be doing yesterday's Leetcode challenge, that is the spiral matrix 2. This is the question. This was the day 13th of April Leetcode challenge, whereas I'm making it today. So given a positive integer n, generate an n cross n matrix filled with elements from 1 to n square in spiral order. This is the question that's given to us. So the question statement is pretty simple. So we have been given an n wherein we just have to just fill it spirally. And how does spirally mean? So let's say if we have a 3 cross 3 as shown here, let's just take a 4 cross 4 for right now. Okay, so this is what we are having. So 1 to n square, right? So what is our n which is given to us? It is given as 4. So what will be n cross n? That will be 16, right? So we just have to fill 1 to 16. So what are we going to do? We are going to fill first 1, 2, 3, 4. As we have filled the first row, we are now going to come down spirally. So now 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we are going up 11, 12. Now we are just going this 13, 14, 15, and 16. So this is how it's going on. So it's something like this, right? So it's something like this way. This is how it's going, just round and round till we get into the middle, right? So now let's get to the approach of how we are going to do this problem. So this is a pretty implementation based problem. So let's understand this with a smaller example, which is this example only, that is n cross n, which is 3. So I'm taking the n as 3. Okay, so I've already drawn this. So R2, and what I've done here is this R1, R2, and R3, whatever I've taken, I'll just explain it to you what these variables are. So what is my n? My n is nothing but 3, right? So n is 3, which I'll just write it here. N is equals to 3 right here. So how do we have to fill it? So first we are going to fill here 1, 2, 3. So this is our first task, right? To fill the first row. This is our first task. And how do we go on filling these? So I've declared 4 variables. As to why, you'll get to know that just in a quite a while. Just be patient. So R1, R2, C1, and C2. Just know these variables that I've declared. So as you can see, in the first row, what are we doing? We are filling this, right? 1, 2, and 3. This is what we are doing. And what can we see? The row is same, right? And only the columns are changing for the first time when we are filling it. So what we are doing here is, I will say, I'll make a loop, very simple, right? I'll make a loop from I is equals to what? See, we are only changing the columns, not the row, right? So I'll take C1, which I have denoted as 0, until where I will go? I'll go till nothing but C2. What is this C2? This C2 is nothing but the last column. So I'll be going on from C1 till C2, or from 0 till n minus 1, which is 2. So I'll be going on filling these. So what will I fill? First I'll fill 1, then I'll fill 2, then I'll fill 3. So I'll fill 1, 2, and 3, right? And how we are going to denote this? We are simply going to denote, let's say our array is A. Okay, so our row is not changing, so I'll keep the row as R1, right? Since the row is not changing. Now what is my column? My column is I. Why I? See, at first my I is 0, then my I will increment till 1, right? My I will become 1, next my I will become 2. So this is how we are going, and we are just assigning a value which will be incremented by 1 every time, and this is what we are doing at the first instance. So till now you have understood how do we fill the first row, right? Now what did we do? We will be filling this part, right? So now let's understand how we are going to fill this part. I'll just quickly erase this part here, and we'll understand how we are going to do it. So till here it's clear. Now we are going to fill this and this. Now how to do this? You see, uh, quite an observation to make is, here what is happening? Only the rows are changing. I'm going to this row, I'm going to this row, and I'm just filling it with what? 4 and 5. and my what is staying constant, my column is staying constant, right? So I can say this is my last column. So what do I have? The variable named as, which is exactly the last column, which is befitting, that is c2, right? C2 is indeed the last column, and this is what we want to fill. And what am I changing? I'm just changing the rows, right? But the row value is right now 0. So how do we do it? So we'll just simply iterate from one greater row. What do I mean by that? I'll just start iterating from I is equals to, my i's value will be assigned to r1, which is right now 0. But since I need to start from here, this guy, this cell, I'll just do r1 plus 1. And tell how much we are going to go. We are just going to go till the last row, which is pretty obvious, right? We are going till the last row. That means till here. So what are we going to do? We'll just fill this 4 and 5. So how do we denote that? So we are going to write a of what is changing. My only the column is changing, right? Only the rows are changing, right? So I'll write it here. That is, whatever is changing, I'll write that there. And what is my column? My column is nothing but C2, which is the last column. So what is my I at first? I is nothing but 0 plus 1. That is 0 plus 1 at the first instance. So it will fill what? 1, 2. That is this guy right here. See, 1 and 2. This is the position we are going to fill next, right? So up till here, this is clear to how to fill this part. Now let's get on to how we are going to fill this part, right? So 4 and 5 have also been filled up. So let me just fill this up. 4 and 5, this is also filled up. I'll just erase this part. And okay, so the eraser is not working for some reason, but let's just continue right here. So this 4 and 5 has been filled. Now what we have to do, we just have to fill this part, right? So how we are going to fill this part is my new question. So as you can see, now where are we going? So we are at the last row, and which is the last row here? See, R2 is denoting the last row. So I know where to fill the row. I know. Now what is changing here? As you can see, the columns are changing, right? So we are going from this column to this column, right? We are doing that. So what do we need to take? You might have guessed it. Yes, we are going to take C2. Why C2? And you must have a question that C2 is n minus 1, right? C2 is n minus 1. So how we can fill this? So yeah, you must have guessed this also, that we are simply going to iterate from C2 minus 1. That is from this column. And the row is going to be same, right? R2 only. That is not any different from the previous one. So what we are going to do here, which is, okay, now it's erasing. So well and good. So we are going to do what? We will be iterating from where I is equals to C2 minus 1. I just told you why C2 minus 1, because I've already filled this. I want to fill this and this guy. So I'll start from C2 minus 1, and till where am I going to go? I'm just going to go till I greater than is equals to what? C1. Why C1? See, I need to go till 0th index, right? So that is why C1. Pretty obvious. And I'll just decrement the value every time, that is I minus minus. And what am I going to fill? I'm just going to fill my array with what? See, here my row is always constant. That means I'm always at this row. I'm not changing. Like I will not fill 6 here and then 7 here, right? I will fill always 6 here and then 7 here, right? So rows are always constant, only the columns are changing. So what am I going to do? So since I know the rows are always constant, I will just write R2. Why R2? Because R2 is nothing but n minus 1. And what is n minus 1 here? 2, right? So I filled this. Now I'll write the columns since the columns are changing, and I'll write whatever a value is plus the temp, which will be storing nothing but the number which I'm going to store here, which is pretty easy, right? So now the only thing left here to do is just fill this column, right? Fill these two columns. This is what we are left with right now. So let's get on with that. So in order to fill this, what are we going to do? Here, okay, there's some problem with this one. Okay, okay. So now let's continue. Where was I? So we have filled this, right, as shown. Now what we have to do is I need to fill this guy right here, this one right here, this position. So how do we do that? So as you can see, you must have noted that now where are we going? We are just going one row up, right? Only we are changing the rows. Now we are changing the rows, but my column is same. I will always stay in this 0th column, but I will try to go up and up and up. Okay, if it is a bigger matrix, there will be more elements, right? So what are we going to do? So this must have been now pretty clear to you. Now what are we going to do? Yes, you guessed exactly right. We are just doing R2 minus 1, right? R2 minus 1. So R2 minus 1 is what? Nothing but 2 minus 1 is what? 1. So I'm going to the first row, and what am I going to do? I will iterate till how many rows? So I will be iterating till only the R1 row, till it is greater, right? And how will I fill it? I'll simply say, okay, this is your row. And what is the column? The column is simple, C1 only, since I'm in the first column only. And just assign it with the number that we are taking, right? So till here, it must have been pretty clear on how to do it. Nothing much, not anything different. Okay, so this is also done. 7 8 is also filled. Now how to fill up this guy right here, this 9, right? This is your main question. So as you can see, what have we done? We have first, let's just summarize this and you'll understand what we are doing for the middle guy, right? So at first, what did we do? We first filled up the first guy, okay, the first row, that is this first row. Then what did we do? Then we filled up all the last column, okay, the last column, this is filled. Then what did we do? We filled the last row, okay. And then what did we do? We just simply filled the first column, okay. Now what happens? See, after we have done everything up, what are we going to do? We are going to increment R1 by 1, okay, and decrement R2 by 1, increment C1 by 1, and increment and decrement, sorry, C2 by 1. And why are we doing this? You'll understand this while I'm explaining this part, okay. So I'll just erase this. Okay, this is not erasing again for some reason. I'll just do it right here only. This is okay, fine. So I'll just explain it here. Why we are doing this, R1 plus 1, R2 minus 1, and C1. So let's see what is the value after doing this operation, right? So R1 previously was what? 0. So now it becomes what? 1. R2 becomes what? Previously it was 2. Okay, previously it was 2, right? N minus 1 is what? N was 3. See, I've written here n is equals to 3, right? N minus 1 was 3. So it was 2 previously, 2, now it becomes what? 1, okay. Now what happens is c1 is incremented by 1, c1 is equals to 1, and again c2 becomes 1. So again I'll go to the for loop, right? So this is all of these things are inside a loop. So what happens is, this was my matrix 1 2, okay, 1 and 2. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, everything is filled up, right? Let me write the coordinates also, so you'll understand this much better. So it'll be much clear if I write the coordinates. Okay, so this is done. So now my R1 and R2's value is this, right? So what did we do at first? We filled up this row, right? So what was that? We did nothing but something like every column was changing. We were going from here to here and here, and the columns were constant, right? The columns are always constant. So what are we going to do? We are just going to simply again do the same thing. Where was my column 1? I will start from column 1 and I'll go to how much? Till the column 2, right? Sorry, I'll go from column 1 till I'm less than equals to column 2, right? I'll go till here, and I'll just fill up whatever was the row and whatever was the column, and the row is not changing. Yes, so I'll simply put R1 and C1. Okay, and I'll just increment the value obviously, which is temp, which I have already taken. Okay, so this is what we are going to do. So now let's understand this with the code. So this will be pretty clear on how to do it. So while I do it, it will become 9. Okay, so now let's understand this with the code, and if you just dry run it once, you'll understand this, how this everything is happening. Okay, so this question is indeed pretty confusing, not confusing, pretty implementation based, that is what I'll say. And it will get clear after you dry run it once. I was also not able to grasp the whole thing at the first instance, so I just dry runned it once and it was pretty clear to me. Okay, so this is what I've done. I've just created a temporary array, okay, of 2D array, and just started doing this. Everything is in the while loop. So what this is doing is, this is just filling the first row. So I'll just draw the matrix again, and if you're not understanding this, I'll just say just try run this code just once and you'll understand everything why I've done this. Or I'll just watch the video again and you'll understand this, how this is going on. So this is 0, 1 and 2, and what these for loops are doing, I'll just explain this once. So this for loop is just filling the first row as I told you. Okay, what this for loop is doing, it is just doing the next thing, like spirally everything's happening spirally. Okay, so what this for loop is doing, this for loop is just filling this guy right here. Again, what is this doing, again this is filling this thing up, right? Again, everything is inside the while loop, right? Everything is inside a while loop. So what happens is, I'll just do the same thing again. So again I'll try to fill up the first guy like this. But after I do this, I see what, I've exhausted the whole thing, and you will see that it breaks out of this loop. Okay, if you dry run this once, you'll understand why is it breaking out of this loop. See, when you do this, after you have dry run the whole thing, the R1 value will be equals to 1, the R2 value will also be equals to 1, the C1 value will also be equals to 1, and C2 value will also be equals to 1. And the last instance, as I have written here, right here. Okay, so what happens is, after I've done everything up, R1, C1, C2, everything is same. So when I come here, what happens? See, R1 plus 1. R1 plus 1 is what? R1 will become 2, right? And R2 is what? Nothing but 1. So is 2 less than equals to 1? Obviously not. So this while loop will also not run. Now C2 minus 1 is what? C2 minus 1 is nothing but 0, right? So is 0 greater than or equals to 1? Obviously not. So this loop will also not run next time. Now R2 minus 1 is what? Nothing but 0. Is 0 greater than or equals to 1? Obviously not. So this loop will also not run. So that is why thus giving us the answer of only 9 here, which is the only element which was filled at the last. Okay, this is why the last loop was only running. And at the end of the day, what happens is, you're just incrementing and decrementing the row and column values. So at the last, so the row will exceed and the column is also exceed, and thus it will be the end of the loop. And this is it for this. So if you just dry run this once, I'll guarantee you that you'll understand this. And I have already submitted this code right here. Okay, so it will give you an AC if you just submit it. So if you did understand this, please do like and subscribe. Thank you.